Life, we all live it, but we do not live it the same way. Some are born into comfort, where every meal is guaranteed and every night is spent in a warm bed. Others are born into storms. They wake up not knowing if they'll eat that day or if they'll make it through another night without fear. This is not just a story about struggle. It's about the invisible battles that happen in the shadows, battles we often pass by without noticing. It's about a boy named Roy and how his journey shows us that life, for some, is a fight they never chose, but one they must face every single day. Stay with me, because once you know Roy's story, you will never look at a stranger the same way again. Roy was born in a tiny rural village, the kind of place where the air smells of soil after rain, but opportunity is a rare visitor. His father worked as a daily wage laborer at the nearby brick kiln, his hands permanently marked by the roughness of a lifetime of lifting and carrying. His mother stayed home, caring for Roy and his younger sister, making meals out of whatever the day's earnings could afford. From the outside, it was a peaceful village, but under the surface, poverty gnawed at every household. Roy's earliest memory was not of toys or celebrations, but of sitting by the door, watching his father come home late, exhausted, sometimes empty-handed. When he was only 7 years old, Roy overheard a conversation that would change his world. His parents were whispering, trying to keep their voices low, but hunger makes ears sharper. His father said, "We might have to take him out of school. We can't afford the fees anymore." Roy didn't fully understand the weight of those words then. But the next week, instead of walking to the village school with his friends, he walked with his father to the brick kiln. The work was merciless. Heat rose from the ground. Dust filled the air. The smell of wet clay clung to his clothes. His small hands were not made for labor, but life didn't ask if he was ready. It demanded he work. At first, Roy thought it would be temporary, maybe just a few weeks, and then he'd be back in class. But weeks became months, and months turned into years. Every day was the same. Wake up before sunrise, carry heavy bricks, mix mud, and watch the sun go down, knowing tomorrow would bring no change. Yet, Roy's mind refused to surrender. In the quiet moments, when the foreman wasn't looking, he would collect scraps of paper and write the alphabets he remembered from school, using a piece of charcoal as his pencil. One evening, something unexpected happened. A volunteer teacher named Farah visited the kiln. She was part of a small NGO trying to provide evening lessons for working children. She saw Roy, covered in dust, but still holding a piece of paper with his crooked letters. Farah asked, "Do you want to study again?" Roy's eyes lit up. He nodded, almost too quickly. For the first time in years, he felt hope. But the path back to learning was not easy. After working all day, his body begged for rest, yet he would walk to a dimly lit room where Farah taught children like him. It was during these nights that Roy learned something powerful. Education wasn't just about books. It was about believing that tomorrow could be different. Just as things began to look better, tragedy struck. A sudden illness took his father's life. In the space of one day, the fragile stability of the family collapsed. His mother, now the sole provider, took work washing clothes in neighboring houses. Roy, just 12 years old, had to take on the role of protector and provider. His dream of studying became even more distant, but something inside him refused to break. Instead of giving up, he began working even harder at the kiln during the day, in a small grocery shop in the evenings, and attending Farah's classes whenever he could. Most people in the village saw Roy as just another poor boy, but inside, he was quietly building the strength that many never discover. The strength to endure, to adapt, and to dream even when the odds are stacked against you. He began saving tiny amounts of money, coins, not bills, hiding them in a tin box under his bed. His goal? to one day afford the school admission fee again. That tin box became his symbol of hope. One winter evening, while walking home, Roy found a small wallet lying in the dirt road. Inside, there was more money than he had ever held at once. For a brief moment, his heart raced. That amount could pay for his school fees, buy books, even help his mother. But then, he saw an ID card inside. It belonged to an elderly man from a nearby street. Roy thought of his father. He thought of Farah's words in class. Your character is worth more than any amount of money. The next morning, he returned the wallet to its owner. The old man's eyes filled with tears. He was not rich either, but deeply touched by the boy's honesty. That single act of integrity would soon open a door Roy never expected, because a week later, the old man returned. And this time, he was not alone. Standing beside him was a man in a crisp suit, his son, a school principal in the nearby town. They had come with an offer, one that could change Roy's life forever. But whether Roy would accept it, and whether life would finally become easier, is a question we will answer. Even in the hardest of lives, the smallest acts of honesty and perseverance can become the turning points we never see coming. We saw how Roy's life was shaped by hardship, loss, and sacrifice. But we also saw something more, a boy who refused to lose his values, even when life gave him every excuse to do so. Now, that honesty is about to bring him face to face with a decision that could change his future. But as you'll see, life has a way of testing us, even when it offers us a chance to rise. The old man from the wallet incident introduced Roy to his son, Mr. Liam, the principal of a reputable school in the nearby town. Liam looked at Roy's small frame, the worn clothes, the eyes that carried both innocence and burden. I've heard about your honesty, Liam said softly. We need more boys like you in our school. If you're willing, I'll give you a full scholarship, fees, books, uniform, everything. You just have to promise me you'll give it your best. It was like a dream. For years, Roy had longed for this, and yet there was a hesitation in his heart. Accepting the scholarship meant he would have to stop working full-time. That would reduce the little income he was bringing home. His mother relied on that money to feed the family and keep a roof over their heads. That night, Roy lay awake, staring at the tin box under his bed. This was the choice: stay in the cycle of labor to keep the family stable now, or take the risk of education with the hope that it would lift them out of poverty in the future. At just 12 years old, Roy was forced to think like a man twice his age. In the end, it was his mother who decided. She took his hand and said, "Your father always wanted you to study. We'll manage. Go." And so, Roy began a new chapter, one that brought its own set of challenges. Transitioning from the brick kiln to a formal classroom was not easy. Roy was older than many of his classmates. His handwriting was shaky, and he often struggled to keep up. Some children whispered about the poor boy from the kiln. Others ignored him entirely. But Roy didn't care. He stayed late after class, asking teachers to explain lessons again. At night, he still helped his mother with chores and part-time work. Sleep became a luxury. What he lacked in resources, he made up for with determination. 2 years into school, another storm hit. His mother fell seriously ill, unable to work. Hospital visits drained what little savings they had. For a moment, Roy thought he'd have to drop out again. The fear of losing his hard-won place in school was crushing. But then, the same old man whose wallet he had returned years earlier stepped in again, covering medical costs and ensuring Roy could continue his studies. It was a reminder: kindness given often returns when we least expect it. By the time Roy reached his final year of high school, he was no longer the boy from the kiln. He was one of the top students in his class, known for his discipline and quiet resilience. He won a district-level essay competition, writing about child labor, not as a distant issue, but as a life he had lived. His words moved the judges to tears. One of them, a representative from a local youth foundation, offered him a place in a mentorship program. This would open the door to higher education, something no one in his family had ever dreamed of. Years later, Roy became a teacher himself, but not in a wealthy private school. He chose to return to the same rural village where his story began. He started evening classes for working children, just like the ones Farah had held for him. He knew their tired eyes, their dusty clothes, their unspoken dreams. And when they asked why he cared so much, he would simply say, "Because life is not easy for everyone. But if someone helps you when you need it most, you can carry that light forward." One day, a boy handed him a small, rusted tin box, the same kind Roy once used to save coins for school fees. Inside was a note. "Sir, I'm saving for my sister's education. You taught me this." At that moment, Roy realized the real victory wasn't that he escaped his hardships, but that he had become the reason someone else might escape theirs. Roy's journey shows us that life's difficulties don't end with one act of kindness, nor with one success. They evolve, they test us, and they shape us into who we are. But also, that one good choice, one honest act, one opportunity given at the right time can ripple through generations. Life is not easy for everyone, but if you have the strength to hold on to your values, the courage to chase opportunity when it comes, and the heart to lift others as you rise, you can turn even the hardest life into a story worth telling.